If you're thinking investing in buy-to-let, there are 7 things that you'll want to consider. Stick around to the end of this video to find out a bonus tip. Hi, if we haven't met before, my name's Dan and I'm a CMAP qualified mortgage and protection advisor. Before I get started, I must stress some mortgages on investment properties are regulated by the FCA, and this video is purely based on mortgages that are not regulated by the FCA. Please seek professional advice before applying for a buy-to-let mortgage, as there are different types of buy-to-let mortgages and rules surrounding them. You should be asking yourself, what rental income can this property achieve and what's the likely yield? Clearly the rent you can charge depends on the property, but a range of other factors can influence it too. What are the schools and other local amenities like? Is it near green space, and is it suited for young families, students or individuals who just want to move out from mum and dad's and get some independence? Getting a property near a transport hub can often be beneficial, especially if it leads into a major city. The easiest way to know is to look online and see what other properties similar are renting for in the area. Be careful not to compare a property with a garden and a driveway if your property is without. Comparing apples with pears just won't end well. You would need to check your rental yield to see if a property was worth investing in. This is simply a rate of return you can expect to achieve on the property. You only need to know 2 figures to do the calculation: the expected annual rental income and the price you've paid for the property. If you know these 2 figures, the formula to calculate the yield is simple. So annual rental income divided by purchase price times 100 equals the yield in percentage. For example, if you purchase a property for 180,000 and you expect to receive 9,000 a year from it in rental income, your calculation would look like this: 9,000 divided by 180,000 times 100 equals 5% yield. Some will argue that you'll need to add stamp duty to the purchase price, as that's also a cost you'll have to pay to buy the property. Others will factor in solicitors and mortgage broker fees as well. Whichever you opt for, stay consistent. If you're purchasing properties now and in the future, just remember to count the same costs for each purchase. Be open-minded with your search location. One mistake some landlords make is to think they must buy a property to let in their hometown. Instead, you should do plenty of research to the rental yields available not only in your immediate area, but also surrounding areas. You might just find there are other villages, towns and cities in which property prices are significantly lower, but rental values do not fall as sharply. For instance, if a property in a neighbouring location is 25% cheaper than in your town and rental prices are just 10% less, it presents a better opportunity. So check tenant demand. Investing in a buy-to-let property in an area without tenants who want to live there is a situation no landlord wants to find themselves in. You need to be sure that the tenant demand outstrips the supply so you can be confident on letting the property quickly and avoiding rental void periods. You may also want to try to target a particular type of tenant. For example, you could run a HMO for university students or try to attract younger families. These 2 types of tenants would have a different requirement, so you'd need to factor this in when searching for buy-to-let properties. Picking a property that is within a reasonable distance of the local amenities such as shops, restaurants and bus and train links is usually a good idea, as this will appeal to the most prospective of tenants. You should remember to be in the mindset of where your tenants would want to live when purchasing and not yourself. So pick a property that is easy to maintain. You will not want your profit to be eaten up by unforeseen and expensive maintenance issues. As such, you should consider how likely a property is to require ongoing repairs and improvements before you commit to buying it. It is often a good idea to steer clear of older properties, as these might be most likely to require expensive maintenance projects. After all, you're not going to be living there, so investing in a period house or a traditional cottage should not be your priority. Modern properties tend to let a lot easier too. If you need to do a bit of renovation before moving your first tenants in, take into account some of the main things that tenants want. These typically include a blank canvas to make their own home, a decent amount of storage and an easy to maintain outdoor space. So consider other costs. As well as a mortgage, there will be other costs that you'll need to factor into your finances. Some will be one-off costs when purchasing a property, and others will be annual fees. These could include deposit for the property, stamp duty, ground rent and service charge, builders insurance, referencing and credit checks, ICO registration, gas safety certificate and energy performance certificate, potential maintenance costs, deposit protection scheme registration, letting agents fees if you choose to use one, and insurance costs. Speaking of insurance, look into landlord insurance. It is always important to protect your investment, and whilst it isn't a legal obligation to take out specialist landlord insurance, it is in your best interest. It covers your liability for loss of rent, damage inflicted by tenants, damage from events such as flooding or fire, and replacement locks and keys. As a condition for most mortgages, you will also need to get builders insurance, and it's worth considering contents insurance too if you plan on letting your property fully furnished. And finally, educate yourself on tax. Whilst this isn't the most exciting of topics, tax is something to consider when looking to become a landlord, as it can affect you in different ways. Tax on rental profits. So firstly, you may have to pay tax on the profit you make from renting a property after deducting any allowable expenses. Once you start renting out property, you will need to let HM, Revenue and Customs know and report your rental income to them each year. There are also restrictions on the amount of tax relief that you can get, so it's a good idea to read up on this or consult a tax expert. I've left the website details in the description below to a firm of tax advisors. Capital gains tax. When it comes to selling a buy-to-let property, you'll have to pay capital gains tax. This is a tax on the profit when you sell something that's increased in value. It is applied on second homes and buy-to-let properties, but not on main residences. My bonus tip, and this is the little gold nugget I mentioned earlier, is to speak to a tax advisor about setting up a limited company. Whereas there won't be any capital gains tax on the property, you would have corporation tax instead. And depending on your tax position, this can be a lower rate of tax, so speak to a tax advisor. Inheritance tax. If you inherit a property, or you're expected to inherit one, and you're thinking about renting it out, it is worthwhile consulting a tax expert first. The deceased person's estate might be charged inheritance tax, which could be as much as 40% and may mean you need to sell it. I think that's enough information for one day. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments below, and watch this video on reasons why you may want to buy a property within a limited company. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.